The council chamber fell silent when Ambassador Thex collapsed. Not from poison or assassination. Those deaths the Galactic Senate understood. The veteran diplomat simply stopped mid-sentence, his three hearts ceasing simultaneously, as if crushed by an invisible hand. His final words hung in the recycled air like a curse. They are coming, and you have made it personal. Queen Velsha of the Zintian Collective watched from her observation platform as security drones scanned the body. No toxins. No weapons. No explanation. Just a dead ambassador in a room full of species who believed themselves untouchable. The Senate had been debating the human question for 6 cycles now, ever since the mining incident at Keltor. 9. A human colony ship had been seized, its 3,000 inhabitants processed for labor camps. Standard procedure for squatters on claimed worlds. The humans had sent exactly one message in response. Return them within 10 solar rotations. The Senate had laughed, literally laughed. Velsha had watched the session recordings 3 times, studying the contempt in their voices. Humans were newcomers, barely 2 centuries into the galactic community. They had no dreadnoughts, no stellar fortresses, no client species. They'd possessed exactly 4 colony worlds in a homeworld already choking on its own pollution. The idea that they could threaten the combined might of 73 civilizations was absurd. Then the ambassadors started dying, 7 in 3 days. All natural causes, all impossible. Velsha descended from her platform, her forearms folded in the contemplation posture her people had perfected over millennia. She was young for a queen, only 400 cycles, but she had earned her crown in the blood wars against the Kresh Dominion. She knew what real threats looked like, and the pattern forming in the Senate chambers made her scales itch with recognition. "Seal this room," she commanded. Her royal guard, the Talon Brotherhood, moved with practiced precision. They were chosen for their ability to remain calm when everyone else panicked, and right now panic was spreading through the Senate like fire through dry vegetation. Senator Crix of the Vorlian hegemony approached her, his translator implant struggling to keep up with his rapid speech. "Your Majesty, this is unprecedented." "We must evacuate. We must think," Velsha interrupted. 7 dead ambassadors, all from species that voted to reject the human ultimatum. None from abstaining or supporting delegations. Crix's facial tendrils stiffened. "You're suggesting the humans are somehow, but that's impossible. They have no agents here, no technology capable of bypassing our security." "No," Elder Thex tried to warn us. Velsha moved to the deceased ambassador's position, examining the scorch marks on his notes display. He had been reviewing something when he died. She accessed his personal files with her royal override codes. The screen flickered to life, showing a single document marked with maximum priority flags. It was a historical record from the human homeworld, Earth, a military doctrine from one of their nation-states, over 400 years old. The translation was rough, but the meaning crystallized with terrifying clarity. "We do not forgive, we do not forget. Expect us." "What does it mean?" Crix whispered. Velsha's primary heart rate accelerated. She had studied human history as part of her xenocultural education, a hobby most royalty considered beneath them. Humans were strange among spacefaring species. They had reached for the stars while still divided into competing tribal groups. They had developed fusion power while portions of their population lacked clean water. They had created artificial intelligence before achieving world peace. And they had fought wars. Not the ritualized conflicts of honor or the calculated resource disputes that characterized galactic civilization. Real wars. Total wars. Wars where victory meant the complete annihilation of the enemy's ability to resist. The display chimed with an incoming transmission. Fleet Admiral Zex appeared, his expression grim even by Krexian standards. "Your Majesty, we have a situation. Long-range sensors have detected spatial anomalies across all approach vectors to the Senate world." "What kind of anomalies?" "They appeared simultaneously 17 minutes ago. Our probes can't get close enough to analyze. They simply stop transmitting when they reach the boundary." Velsha felt the pieces sliding into place like a weapons array locking onto target. The deaths, the timing, the precision. "How many anomalies?" 73, Your Majesty. One positioned along each major hyperspace lane leading to this system. Exactly the number of civilizations in the Galactic Senate. Exactly the number of potential response vectors. The humans hadn't sent assassins to kill ambassadors. They had sent a message, and the deaths were merely the opening line. Velsha accessed the secure channel to her flagship. "Captain Thren, status of my personal guard fleet?" "All ships ready, Your Majesty." "Though I must ask why we're maintaining battle stations when no threat has been..." There's a threat, Captain. We simply haven't recognized it yet. She turned to Crix. Where are the human colonists from Kelter 9 being held? Processing Facility 7 in the Margoff system. But Your Majesty, surely you don't intend... The lights went out. Not flickering or dimming, complete instantaneous darkness in a facility that had 17 redundant power systems. Emergency lighting should have activated within microseconds. Instead, the blackness held for 3 eternal seconds before the backups finally engaged. When vision returned, a holographic projection filled the center of the chamber. A human woman stood there, middle-aged by their brief standards, wearing what Velsha recognized as a military uniform. Her expression was neutral, almost pleasant. "Members of the Galactic Senate," the human said, her voice perfectly modulated. "My name is Admiral Sarachen of the United Earth Defense Fleet. You are receiving this message because you have 9 solar rotations remaining to comply with our ultimatum. We have established a perimeter around your Senate world. Nothing enters or leaves without our permission." She smiled, and Velsha felt her blood chill at the complete absence of warmth in that expression. "Your people are safe as long as ours are. We are not here for conquest. We are here for our 3,000 citizens. Return them unharmed, and we will withdraw as if this unfortunate incident never occurred." The projection paused, and when Chen spoke again, her voice dropped to something intimate and infinitely more dangerous. "But if you harm even one of them, if they suffer one additional moment of captivity, we will show you why Elder Thex spent his final living moments trying to save you from yourselves."
You believe you understand warfare. You don't.
You know skirmishes and territorial disputes. You have forgotten what it means to fight an enemy that will burn its own future to ashes rather than accept defeat. We remember. We have always remembered, and we are very, very patient. The hologram vanished. The lights remained stable, and in the silence that followed, Velsha heard something she had never expected to hear in the Galactic Senate: fear. She touched her communicator. "Captain Thren, I need immediate transport to Processing Facility 7. Your Majesty, with respect, traveling during this crisis would be..." Velsha was already moving toward the exit, her guard forming up around her with practiced efficiency. She accessed the Senate communication network and broadcast on all channels. "This is Queen Velsha of the Xinthian Collective. I am assuming emergency authority under the Charter protocols. All military forces will stand down. All defensive positions will hold current status. No ship will approach the human perimeter without my direct authorization." The protests erupted immediately, dozens of voices demanding explanation, declaring mutiny, questioning her authority. She ignored them all. Elder Thex had died trying to deliver a warning, and now she understood what it was. The humans hadn't come to negotiate. They had come to demonstrate a simple truth that the galaxy had forgotten over millennia of comfortable supremacy. Some species didn't make threats. They made promises. And when pushed far enough, they kept them, with the kind of absolute conviction that could only come from a species that had repeatedly nearly destroyed itself and somehow chosen survival every time. The humans had given them a choice. Velsha intended to make sure the galaxy chose wisely. Her shuttle launched 3 minutes later, punching through the atmosphere toward the jump point that would take her to Margoff. Behind her, the Senate chamber descended into chaos. Ahead, somewhere in the darkness between stars, 3,000 human prisoners waited in cells, unaware that their government had just turned the entire galactic order upside down to bring them home. And surrounding it all, invisible but undeniable, 73 spatial anomalies held their positions like silent sentinels. Velsha didn't know what they were yet, but she suspected she would find out if the galaxy made the wrong choice. The humans had demonstrated their ability to strike anywhere, anytime, without detection. The question wasn't whether they could follow through on their threat. The question was whether anyone would be stupid enough to find out. Her pilot's voice crackled through the comm system. "Your Majesty, we're receiving a transmission from one of the human anomalies. They're giving us clear passage coordinates to Margoff. Accept them," Velsha said immediately. "And send a response. Tell them Queen Velsha of the Xinthian Collective requests permission to inspect the human prisoners and assess their condition. Your Majesty, they might interpret that as... They'll interpret it exactly as intended. As a leader who recognizes when a superior force has entered the field and is attempting to prevent unnecessary bloodshed." She settled into her command chair, pulling up every file she could access on human military history. "Send it." The response came back in seconds. "Permission granted, Your Majesty. We appreciate your wisdom. The coordinates are being transmitted to your navigation system. Admiral Chen sends her regards." Vilsha allowed herself a small smile. The humans understood the game being played. Good. That meant there was still room for a solution that didn't end with everyone learning exactly how far humanity was willing to go. But as her ship jumped to hyperspace, leaving the Senate world behind, she couldn't shake the feeling that the galaxy had just crossed a threshold it didn't fully comprehend. The humans had been quiet members of the galactic community for 2 centuries, accepting their position as newcomers, learning the rules, playing by protocols established millennia before their species discovered fire. Now those rules had been broken, and the humans had responded by revealing they had never truly needed the galaxy's permission for anything. They had simply chosen to be civilized, and when civilization failed to protect their own, they had chosen something else entirely. Elder Thex had known. Somehow he had discovered the truth about humanity and died trying to share it. The question Vilsha needed answered was simple and terrifying. What exactly had he learned that was worth spending his final breath to warn them? She suspected she was about to find out. The hyperspace tunnel collapsed around her ship, reality reasserting itself in the Margot system. Processing Facility 7 hung in orbit around a barren moon, a massive installation designed to hold up to 50,000 prisoners from various species awaiting judgment, sale, or execution. 3,000 humans were somewhere inside those walls. 3,000 reasons why the galaxy was about to learn a lesson it should have never needed teaching. Vilsha opened a channel to the facility commander. "This is Queen Vilsha. I am invoking Royal Charter Authority. Prepare the human prisoners for immediate inspection. Full medical scans, complete records, and unrestricted access." The commander stammered a response, clearly confused by royal intervention in what should have been a routine bureaucratic matter. Vilsha cut him off. "You have 30 minutes. Use them wisely, Commander. Your career, and possibly your life, depend on the condition of those prisoners." She ended the transmission and turned to Captain Thren, who had transferred to her shuttle during the journey. "Assemble a medical team. Xenobiologists who specialize in human physiology. And bring full recording equipment. Everything we find gets documented." "You believe they've been harmed?" "I believe we need proof they haven't been. The humans have demonstrated they can kill our ambassadors without entering the building. What do you think they'll do if we can't prove their people are alive and well?" "I'll have the team ready in 10 minutes. The shuttle docked with Processing Facility 7 without incident." The commander met her at the airlock, a Vorlian named Kest who looked like he'd aged 10 cycles in the past hour. "Your Majesty, I don't understand what's happening. We received orders to prepare the human prisoners for transport, but then the Senate countermanded." "The Senate is no longer in control of this situation," Vilsha said, walking past him into the facility's main corridor. "I am. Where are the humans being held?" "Detention Block Theta, Sections 9 through 14. "But, Your Majesty, I must protest." "These prisoners were legally detained under. Save your protests for your trial, Commander." Vilsha didn't slow her pace. "Right now, the only thing that matters is whether those 3,000 humans are healthy and unharmed. Because if they're not, we're all going to learn exactly why Elder Thex died trying to warn us about humanity's wrath. Detention Block Theta was a sterile nightmare of containment cells and automated feeding systems. The humans were segregated by family groups, each cell holding between 2 and 8 individuals. Vilsha moved through the sections methodically, her recording equipment capturing everything. The medical team ran scans on every human they encountered. What she found made her secondary heart sink. The humans weren't being tortured or killed, but they weren't being treated well either. Minimal food rations, no recreational facilities, families separated by gender despite human cultural practices that emphasize parental bonding, children as young as 3 cycles, barely infants by human standards, isolated from parents. None of it was technically illegal under galactic law. Prisoners had no guaranteed rights beyond survival. But looking at a human child pressed against the transparent barrier of a cell, crying for a mother held 3 sections away, Vilsha understood something the Senate had missed entirely. Legality didn't matter to the humans. Justice did. And right now the galaxy was demonstrating that it had no concept of justice that aligned with human values. She stopped at one cell containing a human male, perhaps 40 cycles old, with graying hair and the kind of calm that came from absolute resignation. He looked at her with recognition. She was too distinct to be anything but royalty, and spoke in careful, measured tones. "You're here to evaluate our condition before they decide whether to kill us or release us." "I'm here to prevent a war." The human laughed, bitter and sharp. "You're about 6 days too late for that, Your Majesty. The moment they separated me from my daughter, the moment they put her in a cell alone at 8 years old, the war was guaranteed. You just don't know it yet." "Explain." Humans don't negotiate with kidnappers, we don't pay ransoms. We don't accept compromises. We find our people, and we eliminate anyone who stood in the way. He moved closer to the barrier. My government sent an ultimatum.
You thought it was a negotiation tactic.
It wasn't. It was a courtesy, a chance to avoid the consequences of your actions. You declined that courtesy when your Senate laughed at our message. The deaths of the ambassadors were mercy the human interrupted. Quick, painless, surgical. They could have suffered. The humans doing this could have made examples of them. But we're not monsters, despite what you might think. We simply have a very clear policy about our citizens. Come for one of us and you answer to all of us. Velsha studied him carefully. You seem very certain of your government's capabilities. I served 20 years in the defense fleet before retiring to civilian life. I know exactly what our capabilities are, and more importantly, I know our doctrine. Do you know what the single most important principle in human military philosophy is, Your Majesty? Tell me. We don't match our enemy's force level. We exceed it by orders of magnitude. You took 3,000 civilians. Our response isn't to take 3,000 of yours. It's position ourselves where we could take everything you have and then offer you one chance to avoid that outcome. He gestured at the cell around him. You're running out of time to accept that offer. Velsha's communicator chimed. Captain Thrin's voice came through, tense with urgency. Your Majesty, we're receiving reports from across the galaxy. Those spatial anomalies, they're moving. All 73 of them. They've left their positions guarding the hyperspace lanes and are converging on a single point. What point is here, Your Majesty? They're coming to Margoth. Estimated arrival time, 6 hours. The human in the cell smiled, sad in knowing. They're done waiting. Now comes the demonstration. Velsha made her decision in the space between heartbeats. She opened a fleet-wide channel to every ship in the Margoth system. This is Queen Velsha. All vessels are to power down weapon systems and withdraw to minimum safe distance from Processing Facility 7. Any ship that fires on an approaching contact will be destroyed by my personal guard fleet. This is not a suggestion. The protests erupted immediately. She ignored them, turning instead to Commander Kest. Release the human prisoners. All of them. Immediately. Your Majesty, I don't have authority. You do now. I'm giving it to you. Open the cells, provide them with food and water, and reunite the families. Move, Commander, before we're all out of time. Kest fled, shouting orders to his staff. Velsha turned back to the human in the cell, which was already opening. I need to speak with whoever is leading your people here. Can you arrange that? The human stepped out of his cell, moving immediately toward the section where his daughter was held. You're already speaking with them, Your Majesty. They've been monitoring this entire conversation. Every cell in this facility has been under human surveillance since the 3rd day of our captivity. That's impossible. Our security... It's not designed to stop quantum-entangled particles from transmitting data across space instantaneously. The human paused at a doorway, looking back at her. We're a young species, Your Majesty. We don't have your dreadnoughts or your millennia of experience, but we have something you've forgotten how to use. Creativity born from desperation. When you've spent your entire existence as a species fighting for survival on a hostile world, you learn to find advantages in unexpected places. He disappeared down the corridor, and Velsha was left standing in an emptying detention block, trying to process the implications. Quantum communication? Instantaneous surveillance across galactic distances? If the humans had that technology, why hadn't they shared it? The answer came to her with uncomfortable clarity, because the moment they shared it, it would stop being an advantage. The humans had been playing a much longer game than anyone realized, appearing cooperative and transparent while keeping their most valuable assets hidden. Elder Thex had discovered this. Somehow, he had learned about humanity's hidden capabilities and recognized the danger of pushing them too far. And he had died trying to prevent exactly this scenario. Her communicator activated again, but this time it wasn't Captain Thren. A new voice, female and calm, filled the channel. Admiral Chen. Queen Velsha, thank you for your wisdom and rapid action. My government appreciates your efforts to de-escalate this situation. Your surveillance capabilities are impressive, and now revealed, which means they're already obsolete. We have backups. A pause. Your Majesty, I'm going to be direct, because time is limited and you've earned honesty. Those anomalies converging on your position aren't ships. They're gates... gates to where? They're quantum-locked spatial distortions that can deliver kinetic payloads without requiring the vessel to enter the target system. We positioned them as a perimeter defense, but their true purpose was always as an offensive network. Velsha felt her blood chill. You're saying you can strike any point in the galaxy without warning, without ships, without any defensive capability to stop you? That's exactly what I'm saying. We built this network over the past 10 years, quietly, carefully, while smiling and nodding at your Senate meetings. We hoped we'd never need it. Then you took our people. Why reveal your capabilities? Who is... Because you're trying to save lives, Your Majesty, and I want you to succeed. The rest of the Senate needs to understand what they're dealing with. Those gates can deliver anything from medical supplies to relativistic kill vehicles. We can help or we can destroy, and the choice has always been yours. Velsha watched families reuniting in the corridors below, humans embracing with the kind of desperate relief that transcended species. What do you need from me? Get our people out of that facility and onto transports. Once they're clear and heading home, we'll withdraw the gates and pretend this never happened. No retribution, no demands for reparations, no political consequences. We just want our people back. And if the Senate refuses to accept this outcome? The pause stretched long enough that Velsha wondered if the connection had failed. When Shen spoke again, her voice carried the weight of absolute conviction. Then in 6 hours, every species that voted to keep our people imprisoned will watch their homeworld's moon shatter into dust. Not their planets, we're not monsters, but their moons, their orbital facilities, their pride. We'll demonstrate that we can reach them anywhere, anytime, and they'll never feel safe again. Then we'll ask one more time for our people back, and if they still refuse, another pause. Your Majesty, I sincerely hope it doesn't come to that. As do I, Admiral. Velsha straightened, her forearms spreading in the formal gesture of covenant-making. You have my word. Your people will be on transports within the hour, heading home with full provisions and medical care. I'll handle the Senate. Thank you, Your Majesty. For what it's worth, we've been monitoring your actions throughout this crisis. You're the first galactic leader to treat this as a rescue operation rather than a political problem. My government remembers its friends. The connection closed. Velsha stood alone in the detention block, listening to the sounds of freedom echoing through the corridors. 3,000 lives, now in her hands, representing the difference between peace and a demonstration of power that would reshape galactic politics forever. She accessed the Senate emergency channel. The chaos had only intensified in the hours since she'd left, with various factions demanding military action, others calling for surrender, and a few suggesting they simply execute the human prisoners as a show of strength. That last suggestion made Velsha's primary heart skip with rage. She keyed her authentication codes and broadcast on maximum priority. This is Queen Velsha of the Xinthian Collective. I am invoking the ancient right of royal intercession. The human prisoners are now under my personal protection and will be released immediately. The Senate chamber erupted in protest, but she continued, her voice cutting through the noise like a blade through flesh. Those of you calling for violence against helpless prisoners, let me be absolutely clear, the humans haven't been bluffing. They've demonstrated capabilities we don't understand and can't counter. Those anomalies converging on Margoth? They're weapons platforms capable of striking anywhere in the galaxy without warning or defense. The humans built them in secret while we dismissed them as irrelevant newcomers. She pulled up the data her teams had compiled. Elder Thex discovered this truth and died trying to warn us. The other ambassadors died because the humans wanted to demonstrate their reach without causing mass casualties. They could have destroyed our Senate building. They could have killed us all. Instead, they chose surgical precision and gave us one last chance to resolve this peacefully. Senator Crix's voice cut through the silence. You're asking us to surrender to a newcomer species? To establish a precedent that any civilization can threaten us into compliance? I'm asking you to recognize reality, Velsha snapped. We took their civilians. They responded with the kind of overwhelming force demonstration that should make every military strategist in this chamber reconsider everything they think they know about humanity. This isn't about surrender. It's about acknowledging that we made a catastrophic mistake and accepting the remarkably generous terms they've offered for resolving it. She transmitted the conversation with Admiral Chen, unredacted and complete. They're not demanding reparations. They're not seeking territory or political concessions. They want their people back, and in exchange, they'll withdraw and pretend this never happened. That's not the offer of a conqueror. That's the offer of a civilization that values its people above its pride. The silence stretched. Then, slowly, voices began to shift. First the smaller species, those who had abstained from the original vote. Then some of the moderates. Finally, grudgingly, a few of the hardliners who recognized an unwinnable situation when it was spelled out for them, the vote passed with 70% approval. The human prisoners would be released with full honors, provided with transport, and offered formal apologies from the Galactic Senate. Vulsha allowed herself a moment of relief before keying her communicator. Admiral Chen, the Senate has approved release with full honors. The first transport will launch in 40 minutes. The gates will begin withdrawal once we confirm all personnel are aboard and heading home. And Your Majesty? My government asked me to extend an invitation. When this is over, when the politics have settled, we'd like to discuss a formal alliance with the Xinthian Collective. Velsha's scales rippled with surprise. An alliance? After we imprisoned your people? You weren't personally responsible for that decision, and you've spent the past several hours working to undo it despite significant political risk. That's the kind of leadership we respect. Besides, someone in the galaxy needs to understand that humans aren't here to conquer or dominate. We're here to survive, to thrive, and to protect our own. The civilizations that can accept that reality will find us to be valuable friends. Those that can't, Chen let the implication hang. I'll discuss it with my advisors, Velsha said. But personally, Admiral, I think that's a conversation worth having. The transports launched on schedule, packed with humans who looked stunned by their sudden reversal of fortune. Velsha watched from her flagship as ship after ship departed Margoth, heading for human space under escort from her own guard fleet, a gesture of protection and apology in one. True to their word, the spatial anomalies began to dissipate once the last transport cleared the system. 73 points of collapsed space simply unfolded and vanished as if they had never existed. But Velsha knew better. They could be recreated at any time, repositioned anywhere, turned from threat to reality in whatever time frame the humans deemed appropriate. The galaxy had just learned that humanity's most dangerous weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their absolute unwavering commitment to protecting their people, backed by capabilities they had developed in secret and revealed only when necessary. Elder Thex had tried to warn them. The galaxy had laughed. And then, when it mattered most, one queen had listened and acted before the laughter turned to screams. As her ship jumped back to Senate space, Velsha composed her official report. She detailed the quantum surveillance, the spatial weapons, the demonstration of reach and restraint that humanity had orchestrated. She emphasized that the humans could have chosen mass destruction but selected precision instead, could have demanded tribute but asked only for their people back. And at the end she added a personal recommendation, that the Galactic Senate formally recognize humanity not as newcomers or supplicants, but as peers whose capabilities and values demanded respect. Species didn't earn that recognition through age or territory. They earned it by demonstrating the wisdom to build terrible weapons and the restraint to use them only when absolutely necessary. The humans had passed that test. The question now was whether the galaxy had learned its lesson, or whether this was simply the first chapter in a much longer, more painful education. Velsha suspected she knew the answer. There would always be those who saw humanity's youth as weakness, their restraint as timidity, their offers of peace as opportunities for exploitation. And those species would learn, the hard way, what Elder Thex had died trying to teach them. Humanity didn't make threats. They made promises. And when pushed to the breaking point, they kept those promises with the kind of absolute conviction that could only come from a species that had learned to survive against impossible odds time and time again, and had chosen to carry that survivor's determination into the stars.
The galaxy would adapt.
Or it would learn. Either way, the age of dismissing humanity as irrelevant newcomers was over. A new balance of power had emerged, written in quantum gates and patient fury, and Velsha had positioned her people on the right side of that transformation. She allowed herself a small smile. Elder Thex would have approved. His warning had cost him everything, but it hadn't been in vain. One leader had listened. One species had acted. And 3,000 human lives had been saved because someone finally understood that humanity's wrath wasn't a threat to be mocked. It was a promise to be avoided at all costs. The stars streamed past her viewport, countless civilizations continuing their existence, unaware of how close they'd come to learning that lesson the hard way. Velsha ordered course set for home, her mind already planning the alliance negotiations that would follow. The galaxy had changed. Humanity had made certain of that. And in the end, all it had taken was 3,000 civilians, one patient demonstration of overwhelming capability, and a queen wise enough to recognize when the old rules no longer applied.